Hey, welcome in.
Welcome to the Arrowhead Addict podcast.
We are here coming to you live. Let me tell you, the dopamine, it's flowing.
I am damn excited. Damn excited.
We are so excited to be joining you guys tonight.
Oh! Well, how you doing, man? Patrick.
Will, Sterling.
Yeah.
Super Bowl champion, two-time Pro Bowler, and Trent Green. Trent Green, how you doing?
Hey, what's going on, guys?
And he picked it up! He picked it up! He's gonna score!
And we'll see you next week. But until then, as always, go Chiefs.
Welcome. This is Freaky Friday on the Arrowhead Addict channel. I'm Adam Best, joined by the golden voice of Sterling Holmes, and of course, producer extraordinaire Richard, making us look good. Sterling, how you doing, brother?
I'm good. It's a gorgeous Friday here in Kansas City. Weather's starting to warm up. Tomorrow's pool day. Guaranteed. 87 and sunny. Pool day. Lock it in.
Can't beat that. I actually have in my condo complex, I have a pool now, and I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying it, man. It's the perfect thing to do when the temp starts creeping up to about close to 90, right? If it's 70 out, I don't know. Might be a little too cold for the pool. But I know you're a basketball fan. I am too. We got a big game 4 tonight. Are you enjoying this series? I know a lot of people are complaining about the small market teams. I'm a Pacers fan, so I'm not complaining. But I just think this is pure basketball. Like, share the ball, defend every inch of the court. I think it's beautiful basketball.
Yeah, if you don't like this, then you don't like ball. That's what it comes down to. The NBA Finals is phenomenal. This is, if you like the 90s, the early 2000s, I know they're small markets, but man, these two teams are very fun to watch. They go 8-9 deep. The Pacers, I mean, seriously, they go 9 deep consistently. The Thunder, obviously, they have a lot of really good defenders. Case and Wallace, Lou Dort, you can put them in the Dortcher chamber. SGA is, again, a very good mid-range player. Jalen Williams has really taken off as that number 2 on the team. Chet Holmgren obviously is slightly enjoyable to watch. Very slender guy, but still fun to watch. Yeah, I don't know, man. You have Caruso and TJ McConnell as the grinders on both sides. I really do enjoy both these teams. Very fun to watch. I hope it goes 7 games. But if people are complaining about this, then you just like to complain and don't actually like watching good, fun basketball.
TJ McConnell and those stolen bounce passes, man, really get me going. You got the Gates shirt on. I feel like what needs to happen is Trey Smith and Creed Humphrey need to take Chet Holmgren on a KC barbecue tour. Get that guy on the trading table. Put some weight on those bones. But what I love about Indiana is you have in an era, and it's been this way for a long time in the NBA, a lot of the superstars, they want to get their 30 points, right? And every once in a while, you have a superstar, a best player in the team like Steve Nash or Chris Paul, who doesn't care about that, who just wants to share the ball, and they'll take over at the end of the games. But when you have a team like that, you don't know what's coming. You never know. You never know who's going to step up like Mathurin did and score 27. I just think it's a really fun, unselfish style of basketball. And the field house, it's not quite Arrowhead atmosphere, and neither is OKC. But I mean, in terms of basketball atmosphere, I've been to games in both those places, just chef's kiss. Got a good show for you guys today. This is something I've been wanting to do for some time, and it's just like a really deep dive. We're going to call it a workshop where we kind of go through some stats, some observations about the Chiefs offense and why it has lost that explosive quality that really was its bread and butter in 2008 and has been sort of waning ever since. And it really wasn't a huge problem, I think, until maybe a little bit in 2023. But last year it became this huge problem where they were kind of winning really in spite of it. And at times it reared its ugly head and ultimately did, I think, in the Super Bowl. So we're going to do that. We got a Reid today?
We do, baby. And I'm thrilled by this one because this is a company and a brand that I really, really enjoy, really like them. And that's Factor. I love Factor. This is not just because they're here partnered with us, but I love them. It is phenomenal food, very quick, very easy. It allows you to get outside instead of prepping and cooking indoors, fresh, ready to eat, perfect for any active lifestyle with 45 weekly menu options. You can pick gourmet meals that fit your goals. Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, Keto, much more. I do Chef's Choice. I've never been led astray. I like doing Chef's Choice because it lets me get out of my comfort zone, try new things, and every single thing that I have tried from Factor has been absolutely phenomenal. They power your day with satisfying breakfasts, on-the-go lunches, premium dinners, and guilt-free snacks and desserts. So savor more this spring with Factor. All the flavor, none of the fuss. Again, for radio purposes as well, I've talked about it, not long breaks. You want to eat something, you want to eat something good, something healthy, something that's not just this is gross. Let me just force this down. No. That's when Factor comes in. Pop that bad boy in the microwave, come back, can eat that thing, and then get back for the next segment. It is absolutely perfect. Again, I cannot speak more highly of Factor. So you can get started right now at factormeals.com/arrowhead50off. If you use that code arrowhead50off, you get 50% off plus free shipping on that first box. That's code arrowhead50off at factormeals.com/arrowhead50off for 50% off plus free shipping.
Man, meal prepping is an exhaustive enterprise. I've been trying to do that, where say Sunday or Monday, I cook a bunch of meat up for the week and cook some veggies and chop everything up and put it all into the Tupperware. That can take 90 minutes, man, and then you throw in the shopping and everything. So I think I'm going to go back to Factor. I was impressed when I tried it before. All right. Our one segment today, it's just going to be total deep dive. And again, it's the workshop, how to make the Chiefs offense explosive again. So we're going to run through each position and start with some stats and observations. We're going to kind of collectively make a diagnosis on the problems and then try to figure out solutions together. Now, some of this stuff, injuries, bad luck, what have you, variance, but I think there are some clear trends that are somewhat alarming that they haven't really slowed the Chiefs down too much, but I think they've sort of been winning in spite of them, not because of them. So let's start with head coach Andy Reid. The Chiefs offense, I'm going to talk to you about RPOs first. The Chiefs offense led the league with 55 RPOs last year. That is the run pass option. No team lost more expected points added on these plays than the Chiefs. -13, basically 2 touchdowns. That stat by Steven Ruiz at the Ringer. So in my opinion, this is leaning into RPOs this heavily is a Desmond Ridder, Jackson Dart type offense. This is what you do when you want an easy button and quick binary options for limited processors with mobility. You keep them on schedule. You create cheap, shallow offense. Shallow offense is an important part of this. And I think what you do is you raise the floor, but there's a cost to that. By raising the floor, you lower the ceiling, you eliminate downfield options. I think Mahomes is a supercomputer with a Death Star arm. The Death Star arm and the arm angles and being able to make any throw from any platform, that has always been there. But the supercomputer part, his growth as a processor, we're seeing that get better and better every year. Personally, I feel like this is like it's akin to asking Steph Curry to shoot only mid-range jumpers. I think I'd like to see more downfield shots, more play action, more Mahomes under center. Where are you at with Andy Reid and the run pass option?
Yeah, I actually I wasn't against the RPO when all the guys went down last year, right? I actually thought the RPO made some sense in regards to the plethora of injuries that were sustained because the offense was without Rasheed, without Hollywood, with an aging Travis, and with the unknown at Xavier. I did think they need to try and generate something offensively. And as Justin points out in the chat, RPOs don't work if your run game isn't respected. Well, that's another factor here. The run game is struggling for Kansas City. So you have to try and find a way. You know my thoughts. I actually would put Patrick under center and not always put him in shotgun. They're not going to do it. They don't do it. They won't do it. Something that I would do because they've done numbers on this, okay? They've done numbers. You don't actually have to run the ball or even run it effectively for play action to work. There's a not as much of a correlation, if any. It hasn't been found. So if that's the case, put him under center and run some legitimate play action. I know he's not Jared Goff. He's much better than Jared Goff, but look at the Lions offense. Now, their run game is great, but they also get it done with Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jamison Williams. They found ways to make it work. I do think the Chiefs could and should run more traditional shotgun or under center play action plays with Patrick. They just won't do it. But yeah, going into this upcoming season, RPOs aren't working. It's not going to work when you, again, don't have a great run game, but also you don't need it when you have Xavier, Hollywood, Rashee Rice back, and hopefully a little more athletic Travis Kelce. A little more.
Hopefully. More. You're totally right about the studies that have shown that you don't have to run the ball that effectively for play action to work, right? And I think the reason for that, these linebackers and safeties, they've been playing football all their life. They have been trained to, when they read run, they're going to the football, they're pursuing, right? They bite. So it's hard to like wean yourself off of that in the pros. Yeah. And I think the running game, it's a little confusing because the running game in some aspects was successful. Like if you look at success rate, it was a good running game. But
Whoa. Sorry, I got to stop you. It was the first 4 weeks of Kareem Hunt coming back to Kansas City, and then it started to spiral. I think we're all caught up on those 4 weeks where it actually was effective because of the short yardage situations buoying the rest of the efficiency numbers. But once Kareem got ran down, those numbers drastically decreased.
Yeah, and what I would say is just because it's reliable doesn't mean it's feared, right? Yeah, maybe you're getting 4 yards a pop and you're keeping the chains moving and you have some semblance of a successful running game, but defenses are not respecting it. That's going to hurt play action. That's going to hurt the RPOs. That's going to allow opposing teams to rush 4, drop 7 back, and might make life a living hell on Patrick Mahomes. So I think there's like a larger trend going on here. And this stats by Robert Mays. They were dead last in explosive play rate last season at 8.4%. And you might say, well, a lot of that's the running game. Well, yeah, that's true. But they were 28th in explosive passing rate. I think kind of what's happened here with Andy Reid, I'm not going to blame Brett Veach as much. And I know Mahomes has to take a little bit of the blame himself, is that the lack of continuity and stability at the 2 other most important positions in offense in the NFL. I would say the most 4 important positions in the NFL are quarterback, and then in some order, pass rusher, inside or outside, offensive tackle, wide receiver. They've had a revolving door at wide receiver and offensive tackle like no other contender I've ever seen in NFL history. As far as my awareness, there's never been another team that has gone to the Super Bowl 3 years in a row with a different left tackle and a different wide receiver 1 each season. And I think Patrick Mahomes has gotten extremely uncomfortable back there. He is at a point where he feels like he doesn't trust his tackles. He doesn't trust his receivers totally. And he's not holding on to the ball as long. If you look at numbers like explosive plays from outside the pocket, explosive plays after 3 seconds, those things are being cut way down. And I think Patrick Mahomes feels like now it's almost like the reverse of what's happening with Justin Herbert. He feels like he has to play perfect. He feels like he has to be on time, not make mistakes, not take chances to kind of put this team on his back. And I think Matt Nagy and Andy Reid are far too happy saying, let's just keep the game close and we'll get in the final 5 or 6 minutes, and 15 and 95 will close this out because they're better than everybody else and they're more clutch than everybody else. And I just think that's a dangerous way to live. And, it's just crazy to me. I've said this before, but they moved on from Alex Smith because he was extremely limited when it came to explosive plays and making things happen outside of structure. And you go to Patrick Mahomes, who is like the ultimate weapon when it comes to explosive plays and making things happen out of structure. And over the years, you've turned him back into Alex Smith. It's very frustrating. I know some of it, you pointed out the injuries, but what do you make of just the general trend here of Mahomes becoming more conservative and sort of Andy Reid kind of capitulating? It's not even, they didn't even see the too high shell that much last year when you really look at it. I think it's more choice than something that's being forced on him. So where do you sit with all that?
Left tackle was a massive issue, and receivers were injured. Not a great combo for trying to move the ball down the field. Yeah, Mahomes is to blame some here. Even when he had a clean pocket at times, he either rushed or felt ghost pressure. And at times, I know we can blame Xavier Worthy early on in the year, but I still put a lot of the blame on Patrick for leading him out of bounds. Yes, that should have been caught by Xavier, one of the big plays that stands out early on in the season, but it shouldn't have even been close because he should have let him up for a touchdown. Like, that was somewhat lost in the conversation of, well, Xavier should have caught that. Yeah, but it should have been a touchdown, not even a first down. There's levels to that. If he's the best quarterback in the NFL, which I think we all agree, that's a throw that he needs to make. I'm not super worried about the trend as much as most people are, because I do think left tackle is going to be better this year. And I think the receivers are going to be a lot better this year. This might be the best trio that Patrick Mahomes has had in his NFL career. Obviously not the duo of Tyreek and Sammy when Sammy was healthy. I mean, that was just incredible. But we saw Patrick win with less. After they traded Tyreek, they won back-to-back Super Bowls. Yeah, I think at times he's overthinking. He's actually giving too much credit to the defense. He's so good. He understands now what the defense is supposed to do. So he's sitting here going, well, he's supposed to be over there. Well, yeah, but he might not be. Not everyone is an all-pro. And I think Patrick is almost getting in his head instead of trusting his instincts. We talked about this. Matt Nagy, I believe it was Matt Nagy, talked briefly along the lines of, yeah, he might know too much. He might know too much right now. We almost need to let him just trust those instincts, what made him so great. I think that's what it comes down to. I know the trend is not great and is going in the opposite direction and as far as air yards and all that stuff goes. But with a better left tackle and with his wide receivers being healthy, I expect to see Patrick return to a 4,500 plus yard, passer with 35 plus touchdowns and 10 or less interceptions. That's what I'm seeing from Patrick this year.
I do totally agree with. He is a better processor now, and his understanding of the game has just improved dramatically from when he first came in the league and could really hardly read defenses. But part of the thing about hardly being able to read defenses, it's almost like, Willie Beeman on any given Sunday. He just gets in there and, throws the ball to the Buick and, screws around and does his thing and never gets in his head, never overcomplicates things. I think the way Mahomes is playing, say in 2018, 2019 was really pure. And maybe we've gone in a direction that is too cerebral and not instinctive or intuitive enough. Like, let Mahomes play jazz sometimes. I think we need to get back to that. But trust is a huge issue here. He has to trust his left tackle. He has to trust, we'll get to Jawan Taylor, but he has to trust Jawan Taylor. There's a reason he hasn't trusted him. And I think continuity is going to be something that hopefully we can see more of these next few seasons. So that's a good segue to look at the quarterback, some stats here with Patrick Mahomes. His big time throw rate by season. Now, what is a big time throw? It's a pass with excellent ball location and timing, generally thrown further down the field and or into a tight window. So in 2018 through 2022, Patrick Mahomes' big time throw rate was 5.8%. Pretty good number. It was higher starting out. It's kind of been trickling down. And these last 2 years, it has dropped somewhat precipitously. 2023 to 2024, that rate is 2.9%. So really, again, cut in half. You're seeing a lot of these things cut in half. That goes up to almost 4% in the playoffs, but still just not taking as many shots as he used to. Any way you splice this up, inside the pocket, outside the pocket, early, before 2.5 seconds, after 3 seconds, whatever, you're seeing the same trends. Mahomes yards per attempt, this is another one. 2018 through 2022, 8.1 yards per attempt. The last 2 seasons, that's down to 6.9. And I think some of that in the past, we've dug into that statistic and looked at the correlation between a strong running game and that number. And most of the quarterbacks last year that had a high yards per attempt, Purdy, Love, Goff, Lamar, Josh Allen, they all had stud running backs, every single one of them. So Jalen Hurts is another one. So every single time those guys almost exclusively have a good running game, and I think probably play action helps that number out a lot, right? So the last thing I want to hit on here is on throws of 20-plus air yards last season, Mahomes was 10 of 41. Something is off there. I think that Hollywood Brown and Xavier Worthy did a poor job of tracking the ball and running routes downfield last season, but that does not explain all of it. I think Patrick Mahomes was inaccurate and has grown increasingly inaccurate in those deep throws. But when you're taking less of those throws, naturally you're going to get less comfortable with them. You're going to get less reps. You're going to get less accurate. So I think they need to dial that number. That's a rookie number. They need to dial that way up and let him get comfortable and in rhythm again, throwing deep. Just overarching thoughts on Mahomes. I know you hit on some of them already.
Yeah, I mean, again, I'm not really worried about Patrick. Yeah, he was not great on the deep ball last year, but when it comes to having a better offensive line, again, that's basically strictly left tackle only and healthy receivers. Again, last year we're going to look back and be increasingly impressed at what this Chiefs team was able to accomplish. Going 15-2, 15-1 when they wanted to, going back to the Super Bowl. Again, I just think time is going to do wonders to how we view this in last year's particular Chiefs team.
And when we talk about Rashee Rice, I think that's really going to pop. That this team made the Super Bowl without, by far, no offense to Travis Kelce, but we saw those first 3 weeks. Rashee Rice was the player this offense funneled through. He was the guy. He was going to be the guy. And I think he was becoming a star before our very eyes. Again, we'll get more into that. But right now, let's move on to the running back position. And I think this is a much bigger part of the lack of explosive plays problem than most people think. When people think what makes an offense explosive, they just tend to think of downfield passing, right? But it all works together. And having a feared running game that can rip off chunk gains is going to open up. And like you said, you can run play action regardless, but I do think it gets even more effective if the running game is feared. And that's one of the problems we saw with Vic Fangio and the Eagles in the Super Bowl, is just he had zero respect for Kareem Hunt and Isaiah Pacheco in that running game. So a few stats here. First off, Chiefs running backs only had 5.8% of their designed yardage produced on 15-plus yard carries. That is the third lowest rate by any team since 2006, almost 20 years. So that is an eye-popping number. I want to dig in a little bit deeper there to show that even for them, a team that doesn't run the ball as much as most other teams, it's still an alarming number. So 10-plus yard running back rushes by season. Let's start back in 2018. 38 in 2018. The next season, it was 22. In 2020, it was 41. 2021, 28. 2022, 36. And 2023, 30 runs of 10-plus yards by running backs. Last season, that number dropped down to 17. So, I mean, it had never gone below 22. And really, it was most years close to 30 or well above. And now you're getting down to 17, which is just a paltry number. They have taken some steps, maybe half measures, I would say. They're not the kind of team that's going to go out and get a Saquon Barkley or a Derrick Henry to address this. They drafted Bradford Smith, and then they brought in Eli Mitchell. And I want to ask you, Sterling, have they done enough to change this? Because when I saw these two stats, it made me really concerned.
Yeah, Brashard Smith is interesting, but it's a 7th rounder. I like him. I think Brashard Smith makes sense. I like the Elijah Mitchell signing. I thought that made sense. We're just not seeing. I'm not asking it like you mentioned for an absurd investment. I'm not asking for Saquon or Derrick Henry, but the Elijah Mitchell one's interesting because it's like they missed out on J.K. Dobbins last year. So they almost tried running it back with the J.K. Dobbins 2.0 of trying to do a buy low and hopefully an injured player turns around and looks really good for your team. I like Brashard Smith again, but it's not like they spent a 3rd rounder or a 4th rounder on a guy. They waited until the 7th, which again, I don't have a major issue with because I think they draft the way the board fell. It made sense to go that way, but I'm not expecting greatness from this running back room. I'm hoping they end up around 20 to 24 in a lot of different running numbers. I think that's a realistic expectation after last year. I think finishing bottom 5 in almost all running back numbers. So I'm just asking for average. That's basically what you need from the running back room. And last year that was not the case. I have my questions with Pacheco, but I've also made the case that maybe we're being too difficult on him because he came back earlier than a lot of us expected. That if his last game would have been week 2 against the Bengals, we would have talked about how we'll just wait till Pacheco gets back. Look how good he was that final game that he was able to play in. He looked really good. But because he came back and because we saw him, our eyes are telling us, our mind is telling us, well, that might be the new Isaiah Pacheco. Fair or not, that's a lot of where I think a lot of people are. Kareem Hunt's interesting because when he first came back to KC, very efficient, yet he got wore down. So does a full off season, does a fewer snap count share help him alleviate some of the workload concerns that bogged down on him later on in the year? Could be. Elijah Mitchell, again, complete unknown. Brashard Smith, complete unknown overall. The run game has always driven me slightly insane because it should always be better than it is. When you have traditionally the best passing offense in the NFL, you should be getting 5 yards a carry. They're not stacking the box against you. You're going up against light boxes every single time. Everyone was talking about how Trey Smith and Creed Humphrey and Joe Tooney, the best interior 3 in the offensive line. Then where are the holes? Is it them or is it the running backs not finding the holes? I've always had a lot of question marks on why the Chiefs have semi-struggled in explosive run plays. And while even when they are slightly above average running the football, I'm just sitting here going, how are they not top 5? They're going against light boxes every single time. I don't know. Long-winded way of saying I think explosive numbers will be better this year, but I don't think we're going to see a top 10, top 15 running back room in Kansas City this particular season.
I think I called Brashard something else. Did I call him Bradford?
You call him Bradford, and I was very confused by that.
You know why I think I did that? I was talking earlier about Steve Spagnuolo. This is going to be a quick tangent, but I think Chiefs fans will find it interesting. And Sam Bradford was the quarterback for Steve Spagnuolo during his tenure in St. Louis as the Rams head coach. And very, very highly touted player coming out of college. And he got hurt during Steve Spagnuolo's 3rd year. And at that point, Steve Spagnuolo was basically sunk. I think when you're a defensive coach, you're a defensive-minded head coach, your success relies even more on the quarterback than an offensive-minded head coach who might be able to. If you look at someone like Kevin O'Connell, he can make chicken salad out of chicken shit sometimes. But I think it's unfortunate because he stays healthy. I mean, even in Minnesota, when he was healthy, you saw some flashes from Sam Bradford, and it's just like Steve Spagnuolo is probably never going to get another another shot because of that. So fortunate for us who are Kansas City Chiefs fans, but not so fortunate for Spagnuolo. I don't know. Maybe it is. Maybe he goes down as the greatest defensive coordinator of all time. But yeah, that is where Bradford came from. Let's move along to the tight end position. Just a couple of quick numbers for Travis Kelce that I thought were a little alarming. And like you said, hopefully this year, better conditioning, maybe a bit of a resurgence. But last year, Travis Kelce yards after the catch, that number was down to 3.5 yak per reception. Now, why is that number alarming? Well, if you look at 2018 through 2023, the previous 6 years, that was a 5.5 yak per reception average. So he's down just in one season, 2 yards, 2 full yards. That's a huge amount. And I think some of those explosive plays that you used to see, why are Patrick Mahomes' explosive plays out of the pocket cut in half or more when you look at some of these different statistics? Well, Travis Kelce, that mind meld where Mahomes would run around, find Kelce, and Kelce would rip off an additional 10 to 15 yards, that's not happening anymore. He's still finding Travis Kelce, but Travis Kelce is immediately going down because he just does not have he's just not as fluid of an athlete as he used to be, the turn up field. We saw it in the Houston Texans playoff game, but I think that was almost more of a result of Houston just being totally out of sorts coverage-wise. Where are you at with Travis Kelce? I know you hinted at a resurgence. Do you think he can get that? I mean, maybe he can't get that yak up to 5.5 or some of those seasons where he was in 6, almost 7. Do you think he can get that back up to 4, 4.5, 5, something more respectable?
I think 4.5 is the realistic number that I have tabbed for Travis for the yards after catch per reception. Again, I think this is the first year. Last year was with where we saw he needed someone else. He needed Rashee Rice. I think the whole conversation of Tyreek versus Travis, I think for the most part, those seasons, I think it was Travis was the main engine with Tyreek being number 2. I think last year's the first year where Travis needed someone to be the number 1 so he could be the number 2. I think that's what it came down to last year. Again, I hate doing it because every team has injuries, but I just think when you had an injury to Rashee and Hollywood, your entire offensive game plan got thrown out the window. It was done.
And Pacheco.
It was done. And so I'm sitting here going, I think Travis's efficiency numbers bounce back a little bit this year. He's older. I mean, there's no denying that. Father Time, undefeated. But I do think some of the efficiency numbers, he does look lighter. I talked about how I saw him and talked with him a couple weeks ago. He does look better. He does look more in shape. That should help some of the yak ability numbers. But yeah, I do think this year Rashee Rice is your number 1 option with now Travis being number 2. I think they needed that last year, and it couldn't have happened because of the injuries. But yeah, I still think Travis is going to be a top 5 tight end, but the clear-cut number 1, I think those days are probably behind him.
And if you look at another statistic, yards per route run, in between 2018 and 2023, that number was at 2.4. 2.4 is an elite number for a wide receiver, let alone a tight end. So he was like head and shoulders above every tight end during his reign of terror. And then last year, he was down to 1.5. That's like a good number for a running back. That is a bad number for a wide receiver. So, and for a tight end, it's so-so. I hope this season, it sounds like he's taking his conditioning seriously. I think the previous 2 years, he tried to go toe-to-toe with Mahomes on Coors Lights, maybe a little too much. You get it. Patrick Mahomes hasn't hit 30 yet. There's a wall there. I'm sure Sterling can attest. The cape comes off once you get in your 30s, and it really comes off once you get in your 40s. You will find that out here a little later. Let's talk about wide receiver. I'm dying to get into this group because Hollywood Brown, Rashee Rice, Xavier Worthy, they never played together. That's why you can't put too much blame on Brett Veach, because his master plan, he went out and got 2 speedsters to kind of stretch the field, not only vertically, but horizontally, to force defenses to defend every blade of grass so Rashee Rice and Travis Kelce could terrorize defenses underneath and in those intermediate zones. And that plan just never came to fruition because Hollywood Brown got hurt in the preseason. And Rashee Rice, unfortunately, had that run-in with Mahomes. I'm sure Patrick feels terrible about it. But I do think there is reason for optimism here. And I think Rashee Rice is the really big reason for optimism here. The more I dig in on him, and I went back and I watched every snap of his last season, really just 3 games. He didn't have reception in that 4th game. I mean, I don't think there's any other way to spin it. He's looking like a star in the making. So according to the reception and perception database, Rashee Rice's success rate versus zone last year, 89.8%. That's a 99th percentile outcome. And I know it's a limited sample size, but that is the 5th best mark ever behind 3 Antonio Brown seasons and 1 Cooper Kupp year. And keep in mind, Matt Harmon, he doesn't sample the whole year. He samples half of the season. So it's really like half a sample size, not a quarter. And he was just ahead of Julian Edelman, was like the 6th name on that list. So just elite guys at beating zones. And then you look at the explosive play component. And I think people look at Rashee Rice and think he has some explosive traits. You know, he has the burst, the ability to make tacklers miss, the yards after the catch, but he's not an explosive player. Well, in today's modern NFL, I think he's very much an explosive play receiver. In 3 games, he had 7 receptions over 15 yards. Now, if you pace that trajectory out for the entire season, he would have finished 2nd behind only Justin Jefferson. And it wasn't just him taking a 5-yard slant or dig or whatever and turning upfield for 10, 20 yards. I saw progress on deeper outbreakers. I saw a play against the Cincinnati Bengals where he had a beautiful release on the line, and I believe he dusted Cam Taylor-Britt for a touchdown. I wish we had a full season because I think there were signs that he was becoming better against man and developing a more complete route tree. But I'm very excited about Rashee Rice. What are your expectations for Rashee Rice, like yardage-wise, for 2024? Let's just say the suspension doesn't happen.
I think over 1150. If I were setting a line, I'd say probably around 1150, and I think I'd go over. I'm in on Rashee Rice. I just think that he is as of now, a top 20 wide receiver in the NFL. I do think this year the ball will be spread out with Xavier Worthy and Hollywood Brown and Travis Kelce. And I don't know, could he get 1,300 or 1,400? Yeah, but I think the ball will be spread around a little more. So I'm not going to necessarily bet on that. But I think you're going to look at him being the legit number 1 option for the Chiefs this year. If you tell me he averages out to 6+ receptions a game, what's 6 times 10? 60. 7 times 6, 42. That'd be 102 receptions. Yeah, I think that seems about right. I would probably put that down for 102 receptions for Rashee Rice, 6 a game. I mean, yeah, I'm all in on him. I am all in on Rashee Rice being absolute stud, just a stud this year.
The kind of seasons I'm looking at are like 2019 Chris Godwin when he caught almost 90 balls and had 1,300 yards, or 2018 Juju Smith-Schuster when he caught 111 balls and had 1,400 yards. Those, somewhere in that range, I think is possible for his ceiling. Let's call it 90 to 110 receptions, 1,300 to 1,400 yards. That's the kind of season he was on pace for last year. So we're not just completely pulling that out of our ass. And, I think you say top 20 receiver because some of it is the system. Some of it is Patrick Mahomes. Some of it is Andy Reid. You put him in Carolina, he's not doing this. But I don't think we can take too much away from Rashee Rice just because of the system, because he is a special player. Is he AJ Brown or Jamar Chase or Justin Jefferson, where he can do absolutely everything on a football field? No, he's not. But with Deebo Samuel slowing down, I'm honestly not sure that Rashee Rice isn't the best yards after the catch receiver in the entire league at this point. I think he is certainly in the conversation. And when you look at his trajectory, I think Amon-Ra St. Brown would be a fortunate outcome, but I think it's possible. I don't know that if we're talking the same archetype, I don't know that CeeDee Lamb is possible, but he's in the same mold as those guys. And I think we tend to underrate those guys, Cooper Kupp as well, because they just don't go out there and smash man on the outside like, a said Jefferson does. But yeah, I'm super excited. He looks great. Like you've seen the conditioning videos, no brace, looks explosive, way ahead of schedule. And people forget this. It wasn't actually an ACL injury. So let's talk Xavier Worthy and Hollywood Brown. I think that the interesting thing about Xavier Worthy was he actually started having success in the Rashee Rice role once they couldn't really get anyone else to stick there, kind of like underneath, yards after the catch. And I think what they really want him to become is more of a downfield threat. Do you think he can take that next step and build on that long bomb he caught in the Super Bowl? I know it was in garbage time, but, it still was an encouraging omen.
Well, yeah, again, it keeps going back to if these guys are healthy, this is a lethal group of four. Hollywood, Xavier, Rashee, and Kelsey. Yeah, it's actually, you can look at it both ways. The positive aspect of this is now that Xavier Worthy played the Rashee Rice role, he can do it all. That wasn't the game plan, I don't think. I think you're right. I think the game plan was just him on the outside, just him with the deep balls, the Justin Watsons, the MVS, a souped up version of that. But that was more or less, I think, the game plan. Well, when Rashee Rice went down and no one stepped up, he had to learn that role. That's good. That's a lot of moving pieces. That's a lot of knowing the playbook. That's a lot of intelligence. That's also a guy that in any given situation, the defender has to say, he might not go deep here. He might actually just go over the middle because we've seen him do that before and be effective in that role. So in that regard, it's definitely unfortunate with the injuries last year, but it's fortunate the way that Worthy was up for the task. Worthy didn't crumble. He didn't get overwhelmed. He progressed as the season went on. I mean, he went from oh my gosh, Worthy, come on, man. A little bit early in the year, a couple of situations where you're like, Worthy, come on, you're better than that. To eventually at the end of the year, you're going, yeah, this guy's a weapon. This guy's a legit stud. He's not just a guy. He's a dude. And yes, I think now that you have him and Rice, and they all play off each other, that's what makes this receiving core so talented in my mind, is they all do something and bring something a little different at the table, and they all play off each other, at least on paper, very, very well. So, yeah, I'm excited for Worthy, and again, Hollywood underneath.
I like the redundancies you have here because if Hollywood Brown gets hurt, we saw last year you have Xavier Worthy. So you have two kind of guys that can stretch the field and can put pressure on defenses with their speed. And I think one of the great things about Xavier and Hollywood is that even when they're not actually touching the ball, they're so fast and so dangerous that defenses have to account for them in a way where I just don't think that was true with MVS. I think they command more respect than a player like MVS, than a player like Justin Watson. The last thing I want to get into here with the receivers is an Andy Reid tendency that I think may slow this group down a little bit from an explosive standpoint. And that is his commitment to less explosive, efficient, productive receivers who he trusts to block, like Justin Watson, like Juju Smith-Schuster. And if you look at the top receivers for the Kansas City Chiefs, what percentage of routes they're running, it is lower than almost every team in the National Football League. So that is a tendency of Andy Reid to kind of have to play a lot of guys, to have those guys who he trusts to block in there. Do you think that kind of like puts a ceiling on this group?
I think it was out of necessity last year. I get what you're saying. I don't disagree. And I do think
it goes back further than that, though.
No, I do think on 3rd and 1 and 3rd and 2, yeah, you will see Juju Smith-Schuster in the game as if they're trying to run the football. I agree with that. I think that actually makes a lot of sense. But I think part of it was necessity. I know we go back, but when you go back, it wasn't like they were 3 deep like this. We talked about the tandems. We've talked about the 2. We haven't talked about the 3, though. So I think that this trio specifically will run more routes instead of just being in there to block. Maybe I'm wrong and just trying to be too excited and I'm too optimistic about it. But one, I think Rashee Rice has the body type that he can block, right? I think first and foremost he can. Hollywood and Xavier, that's going to be a little more difficult. We'll find out. But overall, I'm not too worried about that. I'm really not. You know, maybe it means some of the analytical side of numbers of how many snaps versus targets and all that stuff might go down. I don't care. Win ball games. The Chiefs win ball games. And I think they'll win maybe a little easier. I don't know if they go 15-2. That seems pretty tough to replicate. But I think the underlying and should I say the offensive numbers overall will be raised. Maybe not individually, but overall. I think Patrick's going to throw again. I talked about it for 4,500 plus yards. You're looking at 35 plus touchdowns in my mind. I think you're going to see a much more, again, as we've talked about, explosive offense than we've seen the past year, and especially probably the last 2.
Okay. I agree with all of that to some extent, but I do think there are occasions on 3rd and 5, 3rd and 7, where you look out there and you're like, why is Travis Kelce out there? Why is Rashee Rice not out there? Why is it McCole Hardman, Juju, and Justin Watson and Sky Moore or something like that? Like sometimes the wide receiver rotation is a bit puzzling.
But that won't be the case this year. It can't be the case this year. Barring a wild change of events, you already have your top 3 with Rashee, Hollywood, and Xavier. You have the rookie, Jalen Royals. You might have Nico Remigio if he can make it as a special teamer. You have Juju.
I get
6. So
I get
the rookie in that situation. You're probably
I get
a teamer in that situation. You're putting Juju and then whom?
I get what you're saying, but what I'm saying is you should never have a 3rd and long where either Rashee Rice or Travis Kelce is not on the field. I don't care what the situation is. I don't care if they're tired. Like, you should manage your personnel so that one of your 2 premier weapons can be out there for your quarterback on a pivotal down and distance. That's all I'm saying. I agree with you. This is the deepest group Mahomes has ever had. Some of that is contingent on Hollywood Brown actually staying healthy. I hate to throw that out there, but it is something he has been unable to do as his career has dragged on. The other thing we need to mention is Jalen Royals. I'm pretty high on Jalen Royals. He is a great Rashee Rice, Juju Smith-Schuster, kind of like big slot contingency there. You know, he's some great insurance there. And I think if you look at like who the Chiefs' fourth receiver is from a talent standpoint, that is probably unquestionably the most talented 4th receiver that Kansas City has ever had. I mean, maybe you could argue Legion of Zoom, Demarcus Robinson or something like that, but I don't know. I would say that the upside for Royals is more significant than Demarcus Robinson. Let's hit up offensive tackle. Now we pointed out that left tackle has been a revolving door, different left tackle for each of the Super Bowl runs. 3 years ago, Orlando Brown. 2 years ago, Donovan Smith. Hey, they gambled on Donovan Smith, $3 million a year plus incentives, and got one of the best bargains in football. It worked out. They went to that well again where they kind of gambled on left tackle. And you pointed out that they probably should have kept Orlando Brown. They didn't go down that road. And they ended up having to move Joe Thuney from left guard to left tackle. Seemed sensible at the time. Did not totally work out. And if you look at some of the better teams in the league, like the Lions, like the Bills, who have Dawkins and Brown, like the Eagles, who have Jordan Mailata and Lane Johnson, they have bookend tackles. the Chiefs have a revolving door at left tackle, and then Jawan Taylor. And I think this is part of the trust too. Jawan Taylor has been the most penalized player in the NFL the past 2 seasons. He wasn't last season because Laremy Tunsil lost his mind and beat him out by 1 flag. But the last 2 seasons, Jawan Taylor has 8 more penalties than any player in the National Football League. That is a staggering amount of penalties. I think the number comes out to 36. So we're talking 18 a season, basically 1 per game, where he's setting the offense back significantly. And so I don't think Mahomes trusts either side there. Can they find stability this year going forward? And what do you think the final rotation looks like? Like, who starts the most games at those positions?
I think it's more Kingsley, Creed, Trey, Jawan this year. I think that the floor is higher this year because of Jalen Moore, right? I am concerned that people are crowning Kingsley Suamataia, this stud left guard, a little too early. I'm buying in on him, but I still think that we should have a little bit of trepidation because what did we hear from the Chiefs coaching staff last year? Oh, he's going to be a great left tackle. He's a stud. All good things. No, we're not. He's the guy. And then he wasn't the guy. What have we heard so far? Oh, he's going to be a great left guard. He's the guy. He's the guy. We don't need to move Norzad to guard. We'll leave it as a backup center just in case something happens to Creed. I think Norzad's probably the best guard on this team, by the way. That's slightly frustrating, or left guard, I should say, on this team, by the way. Little perplexing why he's not getting much run. Neither here nor there. They have a plan. They're going to stick to it. Okay. Caliendo's there as a slight floor piece. He was hit and miss. His first start at left guard was really impressive, and then it went downhill from there. But full offseason, if he was, fighting for that role, we'll find out. But yeah, then you have the contingency if Josh Simmons looks phenomenal, and you say, "Hey, sorry, Jalen Moore, we thought you were the guy, but we can't keep this guy off the field. We can't keep him off." Andy Reid talked about how you wanted to tell Josh Simmons to go home. And he's been a grinder. He's just been there day, night, just wants to get more reps. And they're like, hey, calm down, Josh. It's a long, long off season. I know you want to, but we got to keep you fresh and ready and healthy, all that stuff. So I'm pretty tempered expectations, but overall, I'm pretty darn excited about this offensive line overall, especially compared to last year.
And they have it out. Not this season, but the next offseason with Jawan Taylor. They can save significant money. Maybe there's a scenario where Moore looks great to start the season, and then Simmons comes in halfway through and replaces him, and they feel good about Moore moving to right tackle, and they save a bunch of money by letting Jawan Taylor go. I think that would be I would love to see Josh Simmons be so good and so healthy that midway through the season, the Chiefs are like, we cannot keep this kid off the field any longer. I think that is the most promising outcome, but they rushed Kingsley Suamataia last season. I don't think he was ready to be out there. I think it shook his confidence. They kind of threw him into the deep end and said, sink or swim, and he sunk. And I don't think he really ever recalibrated. And now they're moving him to guard. I'm not sure he's a great guard. I haven't given up on him. I think it's you give these offensive linemen a good 2 seasons, I think, when it's just too hard of a position with too much to pick up. It's such a cerebral position. I mean, you look at the guys they're blocking and the stunts and schemes. It's just, I think the speed difference from college to the pros is pretty staggering. So I think we have to be patient, but Joe Thuney, and I think this is a good transition to guard and center. This has to be said, like penciling in Kingsley Suamataia or whoever else at left guard to replace arguably the best pass blocking guard in the league over the past, 4 seasons? That little block there with Creed and Joe Thuney and to a lesser degree, Trey Smith, especially on passing downs. Mahomes is not worrying about Joe Thuney or Creed Humphrey ever. They are number one, arguably at their positions respectively. So Creed Humphrey, I think he is the best center now and it's, undisputed now that Frank Ragnow has retired, now that Jason Kelsey has retired. I don't even know who the gap between him and number 2 is probably bigger than the gap between 2 and 10. Honestly, he's been that good. I think he was the Chiefs offensive MVP last year. To be honest, I know that's not very sexy to say a center was the best player on the team, but he was. And Trey Smith, I think this is what the offensive line really needs. Trey Smith is one of the best run blocking guards in the league. He is nasty. I think on pass plays that happen quick, he's good. But if you dig in a little deeper on true pass set, now true pass set, the definition of that is it excludes plays with less than 4 rushers, play action, screens, short drop backs, and time to throws under 2 seconds. So his PFF pass blocking grade on true pass sets by season, starting in 2021, 49.5, 2022, 59.8, 2023, 52.7, 2024, 60.5. So I think when you isolate Trey Smith into downs where everybody knows it's going to be drop back passing, and he just doesn't hold up as well. And we really need to see maturation, the next progression in his game there. How do you feel about Trey Smith, pass blocker, going into his 5th season?
I think he's the same guy that he came in basically in college. Really good player. Top 15 guard, top 10 guard. But we've not seen any real improvement. And I don't think it's a knock on Trey Smith, by the way, because we haven't really seen that improvement in anyone. I don't know who to blame, whether it's Andy Heck or not. I know some people you can't talk bad about Andy Heck for some reason. I like Andy Heck. I think he's done a great job in Kansas City. You look at the guys he's coached and been with, he's been really, really good. But it's gone stagnant. I think Creed Humphrey's been the same guy he came into the NFL with. A phenomenal player. But I don't think he's really improved. I mean, he came in as the best center, 3rd best center, however you want to break it down in football.
There wasn't a lot of room for him to improve.
Yes, there was not, and that's not really Heck's fault. The same thing with Trey Smith. It's not really his fault, but there is a little bit of a situation where you're like, yeah, Trey Smith has one area he could improve in, pass protection. And it's been the same. He's been good. It just hasn't been elite like his run blocking ability is. Juwan Taylor's gotten worse.
Yep.
Kingsley Sumachi, I don't think it's a fair test, but there's I've heard some rumblings of, Andy Heck was the one that said he wants him to be left tackle, and he wasn't ready to give up on him after 2 weeks. That was an Andy Reid decision. And Andy Heck, then that tells me, read between the lines, again, this is me saying this, that would believe me to believe that then he's the one, Andy Heck, that thought that he looked that damn good in OTAs and training camp that he was ready to take on the NFL. Well, that's a huge miss because he clearly was not, right? So who have we seen really, really improve in the past few seasons? I'm not going way, way back. I'm going past few. You can say Andrew Wiley. Andrew Wiley, who I think did improve. Nick Allegretti, who I think did improve. But we're also not talking about guys who improved to all pros or pro bowlers. We're talking about guys who improved to starting caliber, which is very valuable. I'm not knocking that. But I just wonder, what is it going to take? What's it going to take for a little switch up? And maybe it's not Heck. Maybe it's philosophical. Maybe it's Andy Reid has a philosophy and that trickles down to Andy Heck and that's what he's inputting. I don't know what it is. We don't know what it is. But what we do know is we've not seen a lot of growth on the offensive line. We've seen great players stay great. We've seen good players stay good. Or we've seen good players turn average or average players turn bad. We haven't really seen much upward trajectory. That's my concern.
And making Nick Allegretti your 6th best offensive lineman to where you can play him in a pinch, or turning Andrew Wiley into a swing tackle. Yes, I think you're saying that has value. It definitely does. But I'm sitting here hoping Josh Simmons comes in like Creed Humphrey did. And Josh Simmons comes in and he's already like a 90 PFF grade. he's just a monster from day one. Because if he isn't, I don't know. You look at Lucas Niang, you look at Wanye Morris, you look at the developmental curve for some of these young projects that Chiefs have taken on, including Kingsley Suamataia now, and it is just kind of depressing. We have not seen whatever teaching is going on. It hasn't translated to tangible improvements on the football field, and something is not right. And I think the Jawan Taylor getting worse point is fair, and it's correct. We expected Jawan Taylor. It wasn't like he was getting the greatest coaching known to man in Jacksonville when he was there. Come on, guys. And he looks, I think there's no question about it, he has taken a step backwards in Kansas City compared to Jacksonville. Now, is that a tougher ask, the way Andy Reid asked a tackle to block for Patrick Mahomes? In the past, I would say yes, but Mahomes he's not, throwing out of the pocket as much. He's not holding onto the ball as long. So I don't know if it really is a tougher ask. And I think Andy Heck and the development of the offensive line is something we're going to be talking about all year, because if it doesn't get better, these problems aren't going to solve themselves. Now, what I do like about what Brett Veach has done is he's gone out and kind of overcorrected again. He's given the Chiefs 2 outs at left tackle so that they won't be in a position like they were last year, which I'm encouraged by. I think when you look at receiver and you look at tackle, this is depth-wise, this is the best situation the Chiefs have been in post Fisher and Schwartz and post Tyreek and Sammy. They've kind of been struggling to find their groups at tackle and wide receiver ever since that transition. And hopefully they finally settled on something that's going to stick for a while.
Yeah.
Any overarching thoughts on this problem? Do you think it's kind of overstated? I'm reading between the lines here with you, and it sounds like you think it's overstated because of injuries to Hollywood Brown, Rashee Rice, Isaiah Pacheco, and then factoring in not having a left tackle you could trust. You put all that in a ugly little package, and it just spelled disaster for the Chiefs in terms of explosive plays. And they have the solutions now on the roster to rectify that.
Correct. I think that, again, record-wise, Chiefs probably take a step back, but I think actual production-wise, as far as what this team looks like and how dangerous they are, is going to take a massive step forward. I think this offense looks I'm all in on this offense being a top 5 offense this year, top 3 offense this year. I really am all in on this offense. I would say top 5, because I think last year they're probably about 12th, if we're being honest with ourselves. I'll say top 5 offense this year, and I'll say defense. Last year's defense was a top 5 defense, probably that 5 range. I'll say this year, just because of year-to-year differences, I'll say a top 10 defense. I mean, I think you're looking at best team in the AFC and on par with the Eagles. I'm all in on this Chiefs roster, this Chiefs team. I really am.
How about this for prediction? They're going to win less games. They're going to win 12 or 13 games, but their point differential is going to be bigger than last season.
Agreed.
So I think even if their record won't reflect it, some of the other metrics will reflect it. And I think point differential, they're going to score more points. They're going to have bigger margins against some of these teams that aren't as good. Last year, they just let everybody hang around. The Carolina Panthers, I mean, anybody, literally any team could hang with these guys for 3.5 quarters. So hoping those days are over. Let's get you guys out of here with our final segment. What's spinning? Sterling, what are you listening to, man?
16 Stone by Bush. Love that album. Like Bush a lot. I've gone through phases, but yeah, I'm back in the Bush phase. Even though I shaved my stash, there's the Bush I'll listen to.
I'm not going to go any deeper on that metaphor or whatever. Yeah, Bush takes me back to high school. Gavin Drosdale, man. I mean, he was the dreamboat back then. Him and Gwen Stefani. For me, it is a band called 38 Special. Kind of just fun Southern rock. They got a song called Hold On Loosely. Just think it's a great title for a song. I mean, Holding On Loosely sounds like complete nonsense, but when you think about it, you hold on to some things a little too tight. I mean, maybe Mahomes needs to hold on a little more loosely to the offense.
You know what that song's about?
Can you enlighten us, or is it
the rumor of what that song's about?
what's the rumor? Are we talking
and this is the Arrowhead Addict podcast right here.
Are we talking about like a Violent Femmes situation here?
We're not doing this.
Okay, we're not doing it.
It's a joke. It's a joke.
Thanks.
Best.
Thanks to the chat. You guys always bring it. You keep us energized on these Friday afternoons. If you dig Arrowhead Addict, here's how you can help our community grow and help Sterling and myself. Subscribe here on YouTube. Never miss a show. Never miss a short. As you guys now know, we have a show every single day of the week with the new Wednesday show. So we're going to keep you. There's no off season here at Arrowhead Addict. Audio listeners, please consider giving us a 5-star review on Spotify or Apple. Right now, over on Spotify, we are neck and neck with one of our competitors. Not going to mention who that is for the most reviews, but you can really help us out going over to Spotify. 5 stars. Sterling is great. No mustache or mustache. Adam does his best, that kind of thing. Also, lastly, check out the mothership, arrowheadaddict.com. Matt, Connor, and the gang will keep you up to date every day, all day. That's all we've got. Join us live next Friday at 3 p.m. Central right here on the Arrowhead Addict channel. Until then, go Chiefs.